So we're about to witness a massive move take place within the broader markets, and that's particularly due to the fact that the Fed is likely to flip everything around, and that's because this week is a very notable week in terms of macroeconomic events unfolding. For example, if we take a look at what we have coming out, Wednesday, we have the minutes of the Fed's July FOMC meeting coming out. And this is essentially a transcript of what was said behind the scenes in the last meeting. And what we're looking to parse through and find out is to see if there was any conversations that the Federal Reserve is looking to cut rates. Because of course, the economy has been financially strained with these high interest rates. And what we're looking to see is if we're gonna finally have more easing in monetary policy. Now, this is something that I've said quite a few times for those within the Push Your Profit private group, that September is likely when we get our first rate cuts. But it's not just me saying this. If we actually take a look at what the future markets are pricing in, we see that currently the future markets are pricing in a 72.5% chance that this meeting in September is going to be the first meeting where we start to see cuts in monetary policy. But on top of that, we also have Fed Chairman Jerome Powell having his annual Jackson Hole Symposium speech taking place, and that's another event where we're going to want to go ahead and parse through and hear to see if Fed Chairman Jerome Powell has any mentions about what's likely to take place in September. So the market's pretty much on edge to see if things are finally going to start being less restrictive and finally have easing in monetary policy. Now, we recently just came off of a huge swing within the markets where just a couple weeks ago, the markets fell to this low back in August 5th with this correctional phase taking place. And I actually shared within the weekly Market Post Insight, which by the way is completely free to sign up, where every single week I send out a newsletter talking about what are some things we're looking at in regards to the economy and the markets. And I highlighted how that was a buying opportunity. And if we take a look at where we currently are now, that was indeed a great buying opportunity. So we just came off of a major move within the markets within the last couple of weeks, and I believe that we're likely about to start another huge move. But going back to the weekly calendar, we also have on Tuesday something that I don't think we should ignore, and that is the Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic having a speech as well. Now, it's not entirely sure what he's going to be talking about, but the reason why we want to go ahead and see what he potentially has to say is because something that a lot of individuals tend to forget is that for the year of 2024, Raphael Bostic is currently a voting member within the FOMC. Remember, everyone pretty much rotates except for the chairman, which is Jerome Powell, the board of governors, and the New York Fed president. And so pretty much everyone else rotates, and this year Raphael Bostic is a voting member, and so he has a direct influence on the decision in monetary policy. And we know that Raphael Bostic has kind of been more on the hawkish side, which, if you don't know what that means, meaning that he's more on the idea of leaning towards keeping rates higher for longer. However, recently he has switched to more of a neutral stance, and we want to go ahead and see if he has more hawkish rhetoric coming out, or if we potentially hear him say something more dovish, more leading to the idea of rate cuts. And of course, the market is pretty much anticipating that we finally get rate cuts in September. But now something else I want to go ahead and highlight is the VIX index, which, if you don't know, that's pretty much Wall Street's fear gauge. And back in August, early August, we pretty much had this huge move up in volatility, which was pretty close to what we saw back in 2020, March 2020, where we had the huge, fear of what was going on in the pandemic. And so this led to that market sell-off that we recently saw. But if we actually go ahead and look at what we're currently seeing now in terms of the volatility index, fear has pretty much significantly fallen down. And so if you pair the idea that we may have some positive, insight or more commentary from members of the FOMC, as well as fear coming down within the markets, well, this could be very bullish for a lot of names. Now I want to go ahead and hop into my laptop and kind of just talk about what are some things that we're looking at from a technical perspective. But before we do so, just a friendly reminder that if you have not done so already, consider tapping that like button so that you don't miss out on any future videos, or rather hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. But still, hit that like button because it really does help out with the YouTube algorithm. And with that said, let's go ahead and hop into my laptop. Alrighty, so we are officially in my laptop taking a look at the S&P 500 Index ETF, and we had a significant move upwards after this correctional move downwards, which again, as I mentioned earlier, I pretty much sent in an email for those already signed up, which is completely free to receive those emails, highlighting how this was a buying opportunity and we had a huge move up. And I want to go ahead and touch on what I see is likely to push up as we move forward in the event that we have positive news, right? Because I just recently made a video how, let's go ahead and pan over to Tesla. I recently just made a video how for Tesla, I'm actually going to be trimming my position, right? I talked about how Tesla was going to have this massive short squeeze. We talked about that in, a few weeks ago. Then I mentioned how Tesla was going to be selling off. We pretty much called it. And then right over here, I also made a video highlighting how Tesla was going to hit 219. We actually hit 220. And I said that I was going to be offloading some shares. And interestingly enough, we saw Tesla push upwards, hit 220, and we see this shadow over here showing that there was some selling taking place. And we actually closed at 216. And so I'm looking to trim. I still, I haven't trimmed the full amount that I want to in my long-term portfolio or have exposure to Tesla. But I'm looking to trim some more as I believe that the run-up for Tesla isn't going to be great as some other leaders. And so what are the leaders that I'm looking at? Well, that's actually NVIDIA. And I want to go ahead and touch on that. Now, before we actually touch on NVIDIA, I kind of want to show something that's pretty interesting, right? And this is the, relative rotation graph. And we have all the different sectors plotted here, right? We have XLK, that's the, technology sector. We have XLY, that's the consumer discretionary sector. And then here all clobbered together, we have, the different sectors, finance sector, healthcare sector. And so what we recently saw was that a lot of the other sectors that were pretty much in the lagging quadrant, they ended up going to the improving quadrant, and then we started to see tech and consumer discretionaries fall down. And if we actually kind of move, right, I love looking at this, we see that everything else, that's where I talked about more diversity in the market, everything else started pushing up while tech took a beating. But then as we start kind of pushing up, we see, and this is of course capital rotating in and out of different sectors. Where we ended up seeing things kind of go to is now we're starting to see the broader markets, the different sectors, kind of go more to that weakening segment or that weakening quadrant. And technology is actually in the improving quadrant. And I believe that, and that's also along with consumer discretionaries, I believe that technology is likely to go back into the leading quadrant. And I'm very bullish on NVIDIA. Now, of course, we know that these different sectors, you go back through time, they rotate all over the place, right? But I believe that we're seeing everything kind of go back a little bit into where we were prior to this correction, where we had a lot of concentration into those mega cap names like NVIDIA, etc. Now, do I think we're going to have the same amount of concentration as before? No, I think we're still going to have the diversity into these other names, but I still think we're going to have NVIDIA leading the way. And the reason I wanted to highlight this is because when we look at NVIDIA, right, we have this huge selling taking place. Yes, NVIDIA had a beating, but it quickly recovered. It was pretty much, let's actually go into the, I like having my watch list. Let's look at pretty much the different, the different names within the Magnificent Seven. Sorry, I was paying attention to the watch list. NVIDIA has been the one that pretty much has had the strongest bounce upwards. Of course, we had Google kind of moving sideways. Tesla had a little bit of a strong move upwards. Apple, again, another strong one. Amazon was pretty strong. Microsoft, Meta, should pull up Meta here. There we go. Which, by the way, we also had a swing trade within the Push and Profit private group, and I actually went into more details talking about that. But NVIDIA has been the strongest move. And one of the tenets in the Dow theory, which, by the way, I just uploaded a video highlighting the Dow theory and things that you want to be mindful of, is that pretty much the primary trend, which is a larger trend, that's when you're looking at things from a larger perspective, it's still intact. yes, we had, some bearish activity here and some consolidation here, some bearish activity here. Those are the secondary trends. But the primary trend is still in that upward position. And from a technical perspective, things are looking really good for Nvidia. Now, for a fundamental perspective, because of course we don't just want to look at one data point, as I often highlight, Nvidia is seeing a lot of capital flow from a lot of the mega cap tech companies still, because there's still this idea or this race for pretty much generative AI, and one of the main beneficiaries is Nvidia. Fundamentally, nothing has changed. Companies are still racing to improve profit margins with AI, and we have seen some, improvements, but we're still seeing a lot of investment taking place. And who's going to benefit from those investments? Nvidia. So this is kind of just a little preview of some of the things I talk about within the Push and Profit private group. Of course, I go more into details. I delve into, what other names I'm looking at, but I just wanted to make a public video highlighting that, yes, we may have some more moves going up with Nvidia and pretty much the entire market, actually, as long as we have positive, sentiment from the Federal Reserve. But I do believe, and this is unfortunate, I do believe that Tesla is going to be lagging, and it's not going to have that huge move, hence why I'm still in the process of kind of trimming my position. I trimmed a few shares, but I'm still looking to trim a bit more. I'm not going to sell all my Tesla, but I'm looking to trim a bit more and kind of rotate and rebalance my portfolio, and possibly add some more into Nvidia and a few other names. But again, you want to just do whatever you see value in. You don't want to just copy whatever I'm doing just because I've called it in the past multiple times correctly with Tesla or even Nvidia, right? We called out how Nvidia was going to break out this year, or actually back in December of 2023. That was our biggest trade. We talked about how it's going to explode, or even the broader markets, how, let's go to SPY, where just a couple of weeks ago, those who got that email that I sent out in the free weekly market post insights, I said that this was a buying opportunity. Even though I was right, it doesn't mean that it's going to be, the same type of reaction in the future. I could be wrong. And so I just want to provide that just because you may like some of my commentary, you still have to do your own due diligence. I just wanted to go ahead and provide some of the things I'm seeing within the markets. But hopefully you guys got some value in today's video. And with that said, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and check out this video right over here. Take care, guys.